Ladies and gentlemen, grab your tea. It's tea talk time with Lady O, where the topics are real, relevant, and relaxing. Here's Lady O.
All right. Thank you, Shelley. Thank you so much. And I am so honored to be here today with you over tea to talk about a very, very wonderful topic that many of us don't talk about that much because we celebrate mothers, but we don't celebrate our fathers. So today, here's to our fathers. Happy Father's Day. And we're going to talk about the men in our lives, the fathers. So go ahead and call someone, share this video, and make sure that all fathers are listening because we have a special tribute to you. But we also have some special guests here who are going to not only talk about their fathers, but they're going to talk about what it is they would like to tell their fathers. They're going to talk about their friends who don't have fathers and relatives. And we're just going to examine the hearts and the minds of young people today as they talk about their fathers and as we celebrate them. And I have here sitting next to me is my grandbaby, Nasiah, and she's going to be joining me like a co-host. You have to act like a co-host. You have to lean in, right? And so, Nasiah, um, welcome to Tea Talk. And so, what about your dad? You want to say a happy Father's Day to your dad before we get started?
Yeah, my dad is really nice and kind.
Lean in. You got to talk a little bit louder.
My dad's really nice and kind and sweet to my whole
Oh,
family, and he does so much for us. Even though he works hard and he has other things to do, he still makes time to hang out with us. And I just want to thank him for all that. I love him so
oh, that makes my heart feel so good because that's my son she's talking about. And one of the things that I really try to do is to raise up my boys so they can be really good fathers and be there for their children. Because if you all know that my father was not there in my life growing up, so I didn't know what it was like to have a man in the house, uh, to have a father to go to for different things. So we're going to talk about that today. So I have three other guests, two other ladies and one gentleman. And so I'm going to ask them to come on and make their statement, say hello. So how about Alea Jones? Why don't you come on next, Alea, and say hello to Tea Talk and tell us about your dad?
Hi, I'm Aaliyah, and my dad is Deacon Michael Ford, and he's just been such a stellar part of my life. He is who I really like credit me really diving into my faith to. And I'm very thankful for my dad, and I love him so much. He's such a kind soul, but a steady soul. And he's really that one constant, strong thing in my life. So I really thank God for him.
Right. And I want to just say this too, because I know your grandmother, your daddy's mother, and I know she's a strong woman who raised a strong man. And I know that they were divorced earlier. So your dad didn't grow up with a father in the home all the time. But his grandmother, we talk about those Eunices and those Loises who are grandparents who get in there and we just fill in the gap to make men, even though we don't know what that looks like sometimes, but I know the thing that she did and I know that I did too. We were very stern on our boys and we took them to the Lord and to church and tried to train them up in the way that they would go. And so you guys are two wonderful products of that. So thank you, Leah. We're going to hear more from you in just a minute, but let's welcome our other guest. Let's go to Riley, Riley Harvey. Hi, Riley. Welcome.
Hi. So my dad is Rodney Harvey, and he's just a very hardworking person. He's always been like driven and really he's just always been a provider for our family and for just for me. He's always want to protect me. And like he has a job that causes him to be away from home a lot, but he's always like making the effort like to call or come home during special occasions like holidays, like my birthday or just anything. He's always checking in multiple times a day. And I just really appreciate him just always balancing between his work and checking up on his family, because I know sometimes work can be very consuming, but I just really appreciate that he's like has a way to balance both.
I like that. I like that, having that balance, because we all have to work and we all have issues and things that we have to do that are urgent, but nothing is more urgent than taking care of your children and making sure you get in there to do those little things. Now, was your dad, was he raised by did he have his father in the home when he was growing up?
I don't think he did. He was raised mostly by women. Like he has like a lot of sisters, my aunts, and then his mother as well. So he was raised mostly by women in like in the house, and he was like the baby in the family.
You know what? He's a baby, but they didn't raise him to be a baby. They raised him. They loved him into being a man.
Yes.
And I think that that is what's so lovely. I just give a shout out to all of the sisters who had to stand in the gap to be the fathers for whatever reason, whether the father was deceased or abandoned the home or whatever the situation was, we don't know. But we'll talk about that a little bit later on too, because I'll share with you my story too about having a father who was not there. So let's go, and thank you, Riley, and we'll be back with you in a little bit to get some more from you. So Michael, we got a man in the house, Michael Jr. Why don't you come on, tell us about your dad?
So my dad, he does a lot for me, and he does a lot for my family, like me, my mom, our relatives, stuff like that. Like this, I was like even just outside the house, like even on top of what he does just for us. Um, he's always around. He tries his hardest to make sure I'm okay. He tries his hardest to make sure I have everything I need and most of what I want. You know, I never have to. Sorry.
That's okay.
I never have to like wonder if I'm gonna eat today or if I'm gonna have somewhere to be. You know what I mean?
Wow.
He's always making sure that I'm taken care of, that I'm protected, that I'm safe. You know, like he goes above and beyond like his duties as a father, what he has to do, and he just wants to do more as a father. You feel me? Like it's not he just tries to do the bare minimum. He tries to make sure he's doing the most he possibly can. So I just really appreciate him for that.
Well, you know, one of the things that I know about all of y'all's fathers and yours in particular, I just see the smile on his face when he sees his boy come through the door. I think that all of the fathers here, they love being a father and they love sacrificing and they love going that above and beyond. You know what I mean? I mean, they do it, but you can see that they really love doing that. It's not just a chore. I got to go home. I got to do this, got to do that. They want to do it. So what a great blessing. Let's hear from Shelly. Would you like to chime in and talk about your father and tell us about where you had a father in the home or?
Yes, I did. As some of you know, I grew up in Virginia, in rural county in Virginia. It's called Ruthville, Virginia. And my father's name was Charles Callender. And my dad was similar to the dads that that Aaliyah, Riley, and Michael have talked about. He was in the home. He was very, like Michael said, he did everything he could for us. He taught us how to manage money, how to do well in school. And my dad actually taught me how to read before I went to school.
Wow.
He had,
That's
he would sit me down and go over syllables and sounds. And yes, he did. He taught me how to read.
Wow.
And I just thought about that. But yes, he taught me how to read. And he was just a stalwart person in the community. He was a 4-H leader. I don't know if people even still have 4-H.
Yeah, they don't know what 4-H is.
Yeah,
but
they don't know
what
what
you're talking about. That was very important. Well, let me ask you this. Did your dad grow up with a father in the home?
No, he did not. He did not. But he had some very, his aunts and his mother were very influential in his life. His mother was a hairdresser. One of his aunts was a professor at Virginia State University, and she was a theater a person that she taught theater. So she taught him poems. She taught him how to perform in plays.
That's
And
where
he
your
even took
children
that.
get that from, your daughters.
Yeah. Yes.
How about that?
Yeah.
In the line of their ancestors, your fathers.
Yes. My father's people. Yes. Yes.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm. So yes, he was very influential in the community. He was NAACP president. So he was
He's a
just
great leader.
a leader. He was very
Great
community minded. And later on in life, he accepted his call into ministry. So he was also a preacher.
Oh my. Well,
Yeah.
that's one of the questions I'm going to ask you all a little bit later. Now, Shelly just kind of answered that. So just kind of be ready for it when I come back through. What gift do you believe your father gave to you, or that you can see that came through the family, whether it's through your dad's mother? And Shelly just said here, of course, love for the Lord, because he was a preacher.
Yeah.
And then also the fact that he was a leader in the community. And I know Shelly's always leading and doing something with everything. So let's go on to, let's see, Tisha, can you talk? Even if you don't have your picture on, can you talk about your father? She may not be able, well, if you can get on in a few minutes, I'll ask you that question. Let's see, did I get to everybody? Tracy, why don't you tell me about your father as you give tribute? I know this is kind of a sensitive time.
Well, I mean, I'm in the car, but hopefully y'all can see me and hear me okay.
You're good.
But my dad is Freddie Prelo, and I was raised in Dallas, Oak Cliff.
All right.
So representing Oak Cliff, but we grew up in a what they call the hood now, but it was understood that you didn't mess with Freddie Prelo's children, and he was a great provider. He was a protector and a provider, and one of the things I really appreciate about him is he was very stern with us, but he was also very loving. You know, he would correct you, but he'd build you right back up.
Right.
And that's the thing I really appreciated about him. I remember just thinking about him in a story. I remember he was laid off. He worked for Pepsi for 17 years, and he was laid off, and we were concerned about it. My dad woke up every morning, put on a suit and had a briefcase and left the house every single day.
Okay.
Didn't miss a beat. You know, that was it. And you talk about what I got from him, my work ethic.
Yeah.
Because he said, he said, if you want something, you work for it.
You work for it.
You get it. You get it honestly.
Right.
Yeah. He said, when you work hard, you can get it. You don't have to look over your shoulder. It's yours.
Right.
So he taught me that if you want something, you work hard for it. That was work, that was degree, that was whatever you're pursuing, you work hard for it. The other thing he taught me was when you start something, you finish it.
You finish it. Wow.
Yeah, you started, don't go in there, I'm a seed. He said, no, if you started, you got to finish it.
You got to finish it.
So I appreciate that about him.
Yeah.
Well, and his love for the Lord as well. I mean, he's, even now, if I call him right now, we're going to talk about Jesus for about an hour.
Exactly. Well, that is really great. And those are some good tidbits too for the young lady and gentlemen, the youngsters that are on here, because they're hearing some things that they were taught by their fathers as well. So with my father, just really quickly, I mean, a lot of you know, and some of you don't know, I did not grow up with a father in the home. My mother was divorced several times by several different, so I had several different stepdads. And so it was a difficult time for me being a young lady and being around stepdads and, you know, the dating scene. When, you know, you're single, you have to date and so forth. You got kids there. So it was different for me. And I guess the thing that I would just kind of say to people who, we already encourage the mothers and aunties and cousins that are stepping in the gap to raise up children where the father has not done it or not been able to do it for whatever reason. We don't know what the reason was, but my dad and I have since become acquainted and loving to each other as an adult, as a grown adult. I think I may have been in my 40s or maybe early 50s. That's how long it took for my dad to come around to want to have a relationship with me. And so one of the things I did was I wrote a book, and this is going to be a book that all of you need to get as a Father's Day gift. You can go on Amazon and get a copy of this and give it to anybody who is growing up without a father. And so this is my book. It's called A Day with My Father. And what it talks about is the hurt that I experienced with my dad not being there and disappointing me time and time again. And that disappointment could have grown into a very bad stronghold and hate for my dad. But the Bible says that you're supposed to honor him. And I said to the Lord, how am I to honor this man who has never been there for us? And we did have to live in the projects, and we did have to go on welfare and those kind of things, and kind of worry about, where our food is coming from, and that and even the safety of living in the projects. So what I want to say to you all, and to anybody here who is dreading Father's Day or saying, he didn't do anything for me, I don't celebrate Father's Day, I want you to learn how to forgive your father, because you don't know what he was going through at that time. My father in particular, after talking with him, and we just kind of talked openly, he was young. He was a kid. My mother was 17 when she got pregnant with me. And I think she was 18 by the time I was born. But she was 17 when she got pregnant with me. And my dad decided to do the right thing by marrying her. But he didn't know how to be a father. He was like maybe 18 or 19. So he didn't know how to take on the responsibility. He did not have education. He did not have the jobs, and he did not know how to be a father. So therefore, here you are with a baby, a beautiful baby, I might say, very, very, just like me, that he didn't know what to do. So my mother, my aunties, and all of those ladies, they stepped in and took into that gap to make sure I had my shoes and clothes and graduation things. And so when it came to the point where he wanted me to forgive him for that and to start a relationship, I didn't want to, because I was very hurt. And I thought, I don't need a daddy now. But the thing I'm leaning toward is, number one, you do need a father. Even if you're in your 50s or your 60s, you need a father. And number two, you need to forgive them if they want to come to you and have a relationship. You as a Christian needs to learn how to forgive. And in my book, it says choosing the path to forgive, because on here, you can't really see it that well, but this little girl, which represents me, going down a path, which is life. And at the end, it shows there are two directions. One arrow goes this way, one arrow goes that way. And I've chosen to go the arrow toward the cross. And when you go to the arrow toward the cross as a Christian, you have to what? Forgive. That's the last thing that Jesus did on the cross, was forgive them, for he didn't know what he was doing. Okay. And so now we have a wonderful relationship. I call him every week to check on him. If I don't call him, he calls me. And just this past week, he called me. He said, look, he said, I know you got birthday parties for those great grandkids. I want to send them something. So he's putting something in the mail for me to give to my great grandkids for their birthdays. So every time we have a birthday, I want to give them something. He's going to give them $10. My grandfather used to give us a quarter. So I guess that is pretty good, right? So this is a picture that I'm going to share with you. And this picture is a picture when I invited my father to come in my house. There it is, to come to my house for Christmas.
Video has great grandkids.
Huh? Okay, I don't know if you can see it, but anyway, I'll have to get another picture, but that's the best one I have right now. This is in my book. You can get it and see it. But it shows that I invited him to my home, and that's something I thought I'd never do, is invite him into my house and then share my grandchildren with him, because I kind of feel like he wasn't deserving of it. But that's not the godly thing to do. And this is a picture of my father here. He asked me to sit on his lap, and it was either my birthday or his birthday, I can't remember. And we took a picture, and that's the first time I've ever been on my daddy's lap, and that close to him in that kind of intimate way. So it's possible for you to rekindle your days with your father. If he's not reached out to you, I would say for you to reach out for him, to him, because I have been so blessed. My children have loved him and had a great relationship. And I know that God is pleased. And I know that's why a lot of the blessings I have is because of me doing the right thing. Okay. So now let's go back to our guest here today. I want to ask our young people, especially, because you know what it's like to have a wonderful father in the home 24/7. You know what it's like for your father to be there to tuck you into bed, that if you need shoes for your graduation or whatever, you know he's going to make sure it's done. Do you have friends, or do you have family, or can you speak to the fathers about how important it is for them to, even if their mom and dad are not together, that they still be in their child's life? Can you talk to the fathers out there? What do you want them to know? You want to go first? No, you don't want to go first. Okay, you go second. That's fine. Who wants to be first and tackle that?
I can go.
Okay.
So I hope my mom doesn't mind me sharing this, but she didn't grow up with a father in her household. And so me and my mom talk a lot about a lot of different things. And one day she told me, she was like, when she first really started taking her walk with God seriously, she realized that one of her struggles was it was hard to accept God as a father figure because she never had one in the first place. And she kind of struggled with the idea of what it was supposed to be like, what it was supposed to look like, how was she supposed to interact with a father figure. And it really made sense to me because I'm like, she never had one in the physical realm. And now um, it is expected of her to just accept this spiritual one that she can't see, touch, or feel, talk to. And so I really feel like a lot of people don't realize just how big of a deal missing a father growing up in your home can be. Like, there is a reason why it takes a man and a woman. That man's position is something that, even though it can be, a woman from the family, an aunt, a sister, a mom, a grandma can try and supplement, it's not the same because she did have a big family. My grandma was a great woman and she did all that she could possibly do. But that position is still very sacred and it's still very specific to who is supposed to take it. So
Exactly. How it was God ordained that the man would do that. And it put us a great strain on the woman because my mom had to do everything. And that's why I just honor her so much, because she had to do the role for two. And a lot of times, that's why I think our boys are in a lot of trouble and they have identity crisis because they don't have, the woman can love them, she can discipline them, but they still don't have that model of what a man is supposed to be. And so a lot of times men will learn it in the street. They're learning from their friends because they got the love and support from their mom and aunties, but how to be a man and a father, that has to be modeled. So I think you're absolutely right. So Riley, you have anything to add to that?
I don't exactly have friends who like haven't had like a father figure. It's more like their parents maybe had like a divorce at like kind of a young age. And I feel like it's important to, even if you are separated, like you said, to always have that balance between your mother and your father, because a father is like essential. I feel like both parties are essential to a child's development. I don't think it's I think it's like, especially for young men, to like always have that role model, even though like a woman is there to take care of them, like you said, it's always good for a father to be there for them to understand the um um I guess the characters of what a
How
man
it
is supposed to
works.
be.
Yeah,
Yeah,
how
how
it's
to
supposed to
do
work.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
when you were talking, I was thinking about what I see a lot of times when we're counseling, people with divorce, because divorces are usually a very ugly thing. that people get their feelings hurt, and then some people even go into anger and even violence. I've seen, when you look at women who have been hurt or even in some cases killed, it's been a lot of times at the hand of an angry man. Um, and the child, suffers from that. So what I think I wanted to say from that is that it does still take two, even though you're divorced, um, even though he may not be the man that can be the husband to you, but still encourage him to be the father, whatever that looks like. And so I've been told many times that by the men that the women won't let them see their child because they didn't pay child support of them, or the woman is mad at them. And so when she gets mad at the daddy, she uses the child as a pawn. Like if I'm mad at you, then you can't see your child. Or they were going to go to the circus, and because the dad didn't do something, because you're upset with him, excuse me, that you keep the child from that experience. I have sinus really bad, y'all. So excuse me 1 second. I'm gonna drink a little water. Okay. But I think it's so important that women encourage the husband, the not your husband, but encourage your baby daddy or whatever you want to call them. Encourage them to come and do what they can, even if they don't have money, even if they didn't pay the child support, even whatever the situation. Make sure that you don't stand in the way between a child and their father, because whatever happened between you and that man has nothing to do with that child. So do not punish the child. You may think you're punishing him, but you're actually punishing your own child and keeping them from a father. The only reason I would say is to keep your child away from a father is if he is a molester, if he has some mental problem, he's going to harm the child. But other than that, if it's something between the two of you all, you can get past that. As long as that child is safe, let him go. Encourage the relationship. And fathers, the same way. You need to be respectful of that mom because she's doing your job and hers. And don't expect her to be all hunky-dory seeing you, because she probably may have worked 2 shifts that whole week. And then you come over and you're the person who's all, oh, I'm so happy to see my daddy. And she's looking like, are you serious? I'm sitting here working 2 shifts a day, and he comes in and he gets all the glory. So men understand that it's difficult for the woman, and be respectful of her time and her space and how she wants to get you guys hooked up. I need you all to be respectful for that, because in the end, what you're trying to do is make sure that the child has what they need. And that takes a mother helping the father do that, but it also takes a father who is understanding about the fact that he's not there, and he needs to give her a little bit more prompts. I think even buying her, not a gift to, be a girlfriend, boyfriend, but buy her something, nice, because she is doing a whole lot more. And because of that, your child is getting all these benefits. So, Mike Jr., what do you think about, you're the male in the group here. Do you see any friends that are males that are getting in trouble or not, kind of searching? I mean, even like with us, the guys, our kids' friends used to try to come over to the house because they want to be in a home where there is a father. So they would like search out my husband, and my sons to be that role model that they learned from. What are you seeing?
A lot of the people I hang out with, some of them don't have fathers, I guess. Like I know a couple of my friends, their fathers got killed, or a couple of them, their fathers just ended up leaving because of something that happened between them, or they kicked them out or something like that.
Right.
And so I do believe what you said about kids getting in trouble when they don't have a father figure. And I don't really know why that is, but if I had to say, I would probably think it's because like they don't have that person to look up to who has already lived life, who already has that experience, who can tell you, don't do this, you're gonna get in trouble, this isn't a good idea, So it's kind of just like they're on their own trying to figure themselves out because they don't have that like person there to look up to and to like follow. So yeah.
I think you're absolutely right. And you said a key phrase there. They're on their own. Your child that you planted this seed, that's your seed, and now they're on their own, you know, to fend for themselves. Um, you should do whatever you can, even if you don't have a lot of money. You have time, and I know each one of you fathers have a cell phone. Just get on that cell phone and hit them up, every other day or whatever, just to see how their day was going. And just be honest with them. You know what, Daddy don't have no money for this, but what I'm saving a little money for your graduation or whatever. Do what you can. Even if you have to skip some meals, take that $20 that you go out to eat on, put it aside for your children. But it's your responsibility to make sure that you are doing your best. Nobody knows your best but God. And that's something you can definitely do is pour into their lives through words, affirmation, or just being there. I think that just makes a difference. Men want to be around other men. So if you don't do it, I think that's where a lot of them end up in prison. They end up in gangs because they're trying to do this male bonding, but they're out there, as Mike Jr. said, they're left to fend for themselves. Wow, that's real powerful. So I think the next thing I want to ask is, what do you think? Well, let me ask this one first. Who else in your life that was a man? Name another man who poured into your life in the form of a father figure or a male figure. Not your dad, but somebody else who's a male figure. Because just like we had aunties and aunties and cousins or females that poured into our lives as women, what other men would you say? Where could a single mother go to get some help or get some, role models, male role models for their sons or their children? Anybody?
Audio.
Yes.
As a counselor, I have a chance to talk to students all the time about this very topic, about the absentee dads and what are some alternatives. And one of the things, I get why you're angry, but let's figure out a way to channel this in a different way. So one of the things that I've done at my campus is I've started a mentoring program. I have young men in the neighborhood. We call it the gents. They come and they help, and the gents, they come and they have a step group, they have jackets, they go take them on field trips, so they can have that male presence. And the boys will tell me, Ms. Walker, I appreciate grandma, I appreciate mama, I appreciate auntie, but it's nothing like being with a man. So that's one of the things that we did in our community, because the babies they're angry, and when you really get down to the nuts and bolts of why they're angry, they're like, why did he bring me here and leave me?
Exactly. They feel abandoned.
Yes.
They feel abandoned. And it's just like what Mike Jr. said, that they're left to fend for themselves. How would you feel, man, if somebody just left you to fend for yourself? But the reality is, and Tracy, I know you probably have some statistics on this, most of our Black boys are being raised by single mom. And I think it was like 72% last I checked.
Yeah, and it's ever increasing because it's become the norm and popular. Just get somebody, get them pregnant, and I don't really want to be with her, and I'll just fend, she'll fend for herself. And I hear this all the time from my dads that come in. She's a good woman, but you help make a baby. So even the mindset of some of the dads. It's getting them to change their mindsets and realize you created a child, and you're it's important. But having those mentoring programs, and even uncles, grandpas. I know my grandpa was that other daddy for me.
Mm-hmm. So your grandfather was that other father who was in your life?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, my dad's dad and my mother's father, just having those other men and showing me how a young lady should be treated.
And you're right, there's the strong men. You had not only strong women in your family, but you had some strong men who were uncles or whatever, even though you had a dad. But for those that don't have dads, like for me, my mom had 9 brothers. And so they were the men. And my grandfather was, he was a farmer and he had good money and lots of land. And so he laid that for me as well as showed me how a woman was supposed to be treated. And he made those boys, we could stay on that farm in the summer and those boys would never bother us because my grandfather he called it a razor strap. And he said, this is the boys' room, the girls' room. You don't cross. This is what you do to protect our women. I think the grandfathers may not have been there. So reasons why men don't is number one, it goes back to education. They're being dropped out because they've been abandoned. And so they're not finishing high school. They're getting in trouble. They're going either to prison or the grave or to a low job where they can't make any money. And it's very frustrating. God has called that man to be the leader, and he can't be the leader if he's in prison.
Well, I think this is also where the church can be more involved in the community aspect of child rearing. And back in the day, there were some very, very strong men. We had a stronger sense of community. We had a village mentality. And so the brothers that were at the church would also be mentors and father figures to those other young people that were at the church. And that's also upon the parent to also keep those children involved in a place where they can actually have some good male mentorship and guidance from some of the brothers at the church. And that also means that we have to build relationships so that there's a trust factor, because it takes a lot of trust to allow someone to impart into your child. And then it also takes a lot of time. So it's a commitment on both ends from both that parent and also from the brothers at the church. And so that's one of the things I thought was so genius about the Next Man Up conference, is that it was not just about bettering yourself as a man, but it was also encouraging brothers to reach down and to reach out to other young men to be a mentor and to help disciple them.
Thank you so much, Pastor Johnny, for coming in with that, because that was my next question. You just went ahead and got that question answered because, and for those of you all that are not at First Met, this is Pastor Johnny, and this is his daughter. So she's here with me. And she talked really well about you earlier. So, and I talked too about how, training you up and having a great dad that you had as a role model. So one of the things I was going to say and ask, and you just answered that, Pastor John, I think it just has to be, repeated and people need to get it. You can't do anything about the fact that your husband or your boyfriend abandoned you and your child. There's nothing you can do about it. But what you can do is you can find a church. You can find a church where you have godly men who are willing to be role models, that your child, it may not be their daddy, but they see Deacon so-and-so, or they see the youth pastor. They got some man that they see that's walking and looking like a man and acting like a man, that they can say, oh, I want to be like Pastor Johnny when I grow up. So Pastor Johnny, just real quickly again with the church, can you just share that again about how First Met, what First Met does to really help to mentor young boys?
Well, we have been blessed, even when I was
and the girls too.
Sorry. We always minister to everyone, but even when I was a kid in the teen ministry, we were blessed, even until this day, with people that poured into us, both men and women, but specifically the brothers at the church. They really, really took a lot of pride in helping us to have that outlet to go to get that wisdom, someone that we could not just confide in, but that we could draw from. And these were men that were also pillars in the community. That's the other thing about First Met. We had a lot of brothers that were lawyers and doctors and police officers. And so these were guys that were modeling something for us. But they weren't just talking the talk, but they were walking the walk. We could actually look at them and see the fruit from their labor. And we had men's conferences, and so they were willing to spend that time at those men's conferences and help out. But not just that, when I was a teen, but even when I came back from college, I had been away from First Met for a few years. And so then I came back in, and those same men and some new brothers welcomed me back in as a young man. And so we also have to have ongoing mentorship as both kids, and then as teenagers, and then as young adults, because that male role model is so important in life. And the other thing I would say, I learned this from my youth pastor when I was a kid. We had Reverend Ganther. We also had Reverend, good Lord, Reverend Jackson was. Those are two of the males that were
Conrad Jackson.
Yeah, Reverend Conrad Jackson, and those two brothers, they did a great job of challenging us, presenting some things for us. And then one of the things they were also with us was very transparent. So we got to see their strengths, and we also got to see their weaknesses.
Yeah, because they weren't perfect, and they weren't perfect.
Yeah.
And so you could identify with their weaknesses, but you could also see the strengths that God has done in their life.
Yeah, and you could see how they were taking the word of God that they were teaching us on Sunday, and how they were applying it to their lives. And so that also inspired me when I was a youth pastor at First Met to do the same thing. I wanted the kids to really have a pastor and a father figure that would help nurture them and grow them. And so that's some of the great things that has happened at First Met that I think that we should really celebrate.
Wonderful. So Roddy, why don't you go next? Are there any other men in your life besides your dad that made a great impact on you? Any other father figures or men?
None that I can exactly think of, because I don't know. I don't really, I mostly just stay within, like, I don't really contact that many people, I guess, outside my family, I guess. I don't know really, but like I mostly just get most of my influence from my dad. I don't really have like a second father figure.
Yeah. What about in the church? Because I know you grew up in the church. Were there any male figures in the church that you would consider to be the kind of man that you might one day want to marry, that kind of man, or that you saw? Because I think it's important for girls to see too, the kind of men that are fathers and husbands that support their families. So have you ever thought about the fact that you're placed in a church where there are a lot of successful men, not only in their careers, but they're good fathers?
I guess I would say Pastor Johnny, because I had some like deep conversations with him about faith and things like that. So, and he really like helped me, like just guide me towards like the right path, and like trying to secure me in my faith and everything like that. And he's a very kind soul. He's always checking up on me, asking how school was going when during high school and like now during college. And so I would say Pastor Johnny, because he's just really supportive in like what I do, like my art and everything. So I would say I really appreciate I really appreciate him for that.
And I'm glad you said that too, because a lot of times we don't think about who else God has placed in our lives. And we need our fathers, but we need other men. Sometimes you can't go to your father, or sometimes you need that encouragement from another man. And if the first person you get it from is some joker on the street, you might not know how to balance that out, or to identify, oh, this person talks like my dad, but I've had enough experience in seeing what true fathers and men look like. And this one doesn't look like, something doesn't go right with this particular person. So, all right. What about Aaliyah? What about you? Any other male role models?
I would say growing up, my uncle Eddie, mainly because I'm really close with my aunt, and so like seeing them together, I'm actually at their house now, so like I just spent a lot of time with them growing up, and we were really close. He helped spoil me, And I always just enjoyed being on the road with him and watch him play his games, his baseball games. And we were so close. It's funny because I didn't even know he was my uncle. I used to call him Uncle Papa. So I didn't know if he was my uncle or my granddad. But yeah, he played a big role in just having like a secondary father figure. And I think at church, like, even though I don't interact a lot, like, I know Elder Al, him and Miss Jackie's like relationship with my parents has like made me appreciate him as a manly figure in my life, and just watching a lot of men in First Met, from Pastor Johnny, Pastor Jordan, Bishop, a lot of deacons. Like, I just watch how they carry themselves and how they treat others, how they treat me, how they dedicate themselves to the church. And so like that really helps form in my mind what I should be looking for when the time comes.
Exactly. You know, we're going to want you to bring him so we can all check him out. Okay. we got to all lay our hand. You want to marry one of our daughters from the church? You want to see who you are. But I'm glad you closed that up, Alea, that way, because that is what I want to kind of close on. Let's say thank you to the men who have not just our fathers, but have been a father figure and a role model, positive. They didn't try to harm us. They try to protect us, whether, you know, like you said, it was having godly leaders. And one of the things I can say about First Met, we really, really strive to have godly male leadership at First Met. There are a lot of wonderful women, but we don't put, you won't come to First Met and find a whole bunch of women running everything. You find godly men. And even though they're not your father, they are father figures and father role models. And they treat the children as if they were their own. They're not going to harm that child or, you know, act out in a way that you would be embarrassed for your leader at First Met. None of them are perfect, but I'm just saying that that's one of the things that if you are a member of First Met, you can definitely say you have godly male father leaders that you can look up to. So if you don't have that for your child, I would say find a good church where they have that. If you can come to First Met, come to First Met. We will help you out and to raise your child and have those good role models. If you don't want to come to First Met, find a good church home that's in your community. I know a lot of you all that watch Tea Talk are in other states, but it's your job as a mother to not only do the best you can and try to fill in the gaps, but it is for them to be exposed to other men that are good men, and don't bring your boyfriends over too quick to let them be the father. No, take them to the church house. If you've got a good pastor, a good bishop, and then you can see how he's training his leaders, then you can say that's a safe place. But be careful about bringing in strange men into your house and letting them be the father. And even be careful with some churches that have been abusive to children as well. But listen, we're gonna have to sign off now, but I want you all to we're gonna mute ourselves and say Happy Father's Day. We love you, Daddy, or whatever you call your father, okay? On the count, go ahead and mute yourself, everybody. And then on the count of 3, you in here. 1, 2, 3.
Happy Father's Day.
Bishop, we love you. And to all the other men that have stood in the gap and the women, Happy Father's Day. We love you and we pray God's blessings upon you. Well, listen, it's been fun. Thank you to my guests. And join me next week for tea with Lady O at 3.